Welcome back to Not Alone. I'm your host, Melissa Sue Methvin, and today's episode will be deeply raw and inspiring. My guest today is Jennifer Stirling-Campbell, and she knows how it feels to live in the dark and filled with anger. She describes herself as being born depressed, carrying a weight that followed her from childhood through more than a decade on Prozac. But her story doesn't end there. Jennifer's journey is one of surrender, divine intervention, and healing, where unexpected guidance, even through things like omega-3s, brain scan, creative downloads, gave her a flashlight and a map out of the darkness. Today, she's not only found joy again, but she's explaining others to do the same through her podcast and workbook series. In this episode, we'll talk about the spiritual battle behind depression, the surprising tools that helped her rewire her brain, and how choosing to lean on God can transform even the heaviest of battles. This is a conversation about breaking free from ancestral baggage, learning to listen to divine guidance, and discovering that even when life feels impossible, you are never truly alone. So take a deep breath with me, open your heart, and let's step into Jennifer's powerful story. Welcome.
Thank you.
I have been really excited to have you on here because I think we align on a lot of things, and more that I have guests on, I see a correlation with depression and, inviting more God in, and also how there is something, some people will call it a dark entity, demons. There's something about that. And I just, let's start, your childhood. You said you describe yourself as being born depressed. What does that mean?
I was really, really serious. I was very serious. And I think I came from a line of depressed, especially women. And neither of my sisters really struggled with depression, but I definitely did. And it was accompanied by intense anger. And I remember even at a very young age, I would be thinking very intently about the state of the world and how evil it was and all the bad things that happened and what as society we should do about this, and how if I was king, what would I do? What would I change? And how would I make everybody be better? And that's a pretty heavy burden to put on yourself when you're 5.
Absolutely. So were you, at 5-year-old, were you telling your parents or?
Oh, I was always telling my mom what she should be doing, how she should be different. The house is messy. We need to keep it clean, because control was the thing. If I could control everyone in my life, then my life would be better. If everyone stopped being bad, then I wouldn't have to try so hard to be good. And that was my belief system, even as a very small child, which is kind of crazy. It's kind of Nazi. It's kind of commie. And I'm glad I worked that out, and I no longer feel that way. But as I grew older, I got married, did all the things I was supposed to do. I was a very devout Mormon Christian. And so I thought I had God in my life, and that I was obeying all of the commandments and to the best of my ability and doing what I was supposed to be doing. And yet I was miserable. And I was taught this is the plan of happiness, right? And I couldn't quite make any sense of it.
So you're saying you were miserable. Were you just not finding any joy in a day-to-day?
Oh, day-to-day, it was just darkness. Pretty much, I'd wake up in the morning and think, new day, let's try again. And in about 5 minutes, I'd make a mistake, and the day was ruined.
You'd kind of spiral in your
thoughts.
It
was a spiral. And just very negative, recycling thoughts, would never shut up. And I didn't realize that so many of those thoughts and voices weren't even mine. But when you think they're yours, you think that you're a terrible person. And not only that, I knew that it was only a matter of time that anyone I was close to would see that version of me, and that I would disappoint them.
Kind of like the anger you mentioned.
Yeah.
Anger. So it's just like anger outbursts as far as like screaming or?
Yeah, it was saying things that were really, really mean. And I have this ability that can be used for good, but I was using it for evil. And it was that I could see people's vulnerabilities very clearly. I could see what would hurt them the most. And if you can do that, you can be a really great healer, identify and help process that. But if you're using it for evil, you'll use it against them to hurt them more. Oh, wow. So I would keep tabs on people. And when they would say or do something that was hurtful to me, then I would use it and hurt people terribly and deeply. And this was my family, my sisters, my husband, even friends sometimes that I felt betrayed by, and so forth. It's horrible. But the thing that I've started learning as I got older was that all the things I thought were me really were just all the scripture that talks about weakness. It's not talking about weakness at all. And this is a light bulb, bing, for me at one point. It's talking about the strengths you don't realize you have. When it talks about weaknesses becoming strengths, they were your strengths in the first place. But those evil forces that know who you are as well as God does will stop at nothing to make sure you don't figure out who you are. Oh, yes. And remember and harness those powers to use for good, because they don't want you to find out, because you'll be really damaging to their plans if you do.
Keep you in fear.
Keep you in fear.
Shame, and guilt, which is kind of the lowest vibrating frequencies.
Exactly.
Right? Yes.
But when you're depressed, that's all you know. It's very hard to break out of something like that.
I know. I've seen that. I've seen where trying to talk to my husband and encourage him to see the love that's around him, the support, and see a different way of life.
You're blind.
I couldn't get through to him. And I love that you're mentioning that it wasn't you, because I could see that. And a lot of it, I could feel it in him. There was something keeping me at bay. Like almost I was fearful of him.
Yeah.
To a point where whenever he'd step into the door after work, I'd have intense anxiety. I'd have a glass of wine to calm that nerve. Mm-hmm. And there was now I know there was this darkness, and that intensity got worse and worse as the years went back. Yeah. And I know my kids felt it. And like you mentioned, you're born with it, right? I have learned that I am born with this gift. I can walk into a room and I could read that room. Mm-hmm. I could read that person through their energies. And sometimes it's like, oh, don't go there. Like, this is a no.
Not safe.
You're not safe. Or I could see right through their veil. Before I second guess myself. It's been 44 years now. I'm still learning. I still make mistakes because I'm like, oh, I'm going to give them a second chance. And then I'm always right at the end. Mm-hmm. So I've always been very intuitive that way and in feeling that. So I love that you mentioned that, because I've been in a room once where that darkness was so strong. And now I'm really more aware that I was right, what I felt with my husband, and that is a true thing with darkness. And I kind of warned people. I said, ooh, I felt this intense darkness in that person. There's something.
Right. And to recognize that we're not judging.
No.
Like if you're doing it with love, you're not judging, you're just identifying that there's something dark in or around them.
Yes, it's not them, right? That there's no judging.
That doesn't mean that you don't have to be setting boundaries.
That's a fine line, because I'm definitely not about judging. It's not like go out there and like, this person.
It's important to understand that you can still have discernment.
Yes.
And learn not to judge, which has been hard for me, because I was a judging person for many, many, many years.
Yes, and I remember you mentioning that. How old were you when you were put on Prozac?
I was 15.
15 years old. And your mom as well.
Yeah.
Both started
and she didn't know what else to do. It was, at the time, it did help. It calmed me down. It made me less volatile. It had some side effects to it that weren't desirable, made me more tired. It made me more forgetful, careless. A lot of these drugs, they will make you not care. And the trouble with that is that when you are depressed, you need respite, right? But our lives are just so busy, and people want a quick fix, so they'll turn to the drugs, and then they care even less. There's not that constant reminder that something needs to change, and that's really what depression is. It's something's wrong, something needs to be addressed, something
your body's
needs to change.
Speaking,
but most people don't know what to do. And that's why I've started the Overcome Depression podcast, not only to give tools, but also spiritual awareness of this is what's going on. Once you start to see it and become aware of it, you can fight it. And you can utilize God and angels and Christ in the ways that were always intended, but you just didn't know how.
You didn't know how. Yes. Yeah. Because, like you said, even people of faith that pray and do this on a daily basis. So many people
in faith are depressed.
Yes.
I think Utah is the most prescribed Prozac state. And that has more Mormons than any other state in it. It's a real problem that people are not understanding the principles and how to actually apply them.
Yes, I always say, medication is great. It's there for a reason, but it's an adjunction. Let's find out the root cause. Why is that depression there? And a lot of it is we need to learn more about ourselves and go within, right?
And if you learn these things, you can help your children not get to the point where they'll even need it necessarily. If you know how to address it from the beginning and you see the signs and you teach them the tools. Of course, they have their agency too. But I found that none of my kids struggle with anxiety or depression at the level that they would need to be medicated because I taught them the things that I've learned.
That you've learned. So after, I know, a decade of being on Prozac, what kind of switched that for you as far as like going to more of the root
desperate. Okay. I got desperate. I was on the phone with my mom. And she told me that she'd just been to her doctor and asked him some pointed questions about the side effects of Prozac. And he was very honest with her. And he told her that it was a pretty new drug when I started taking it, and everyone was really excited about it. And he said, actually, people who are taking it long term, they're kind of turning into couch potatoes and just not wanting to do anything, no motivation. And that horrified me. Yeah. And I felt it was like this despair of, I don't know what to do. If I get off of it, I'm a monster. I know every time I've ever tried to get off of it, I'm a monster, but I can't let this happen to me. And I literally threw up my arms after I got off the phone with her, and I shouted at God. I said, you freaking made me. You know how to fix me. Do it. I'm not doing this anymore.
Your hands out, so totally surrendering.
And kind of mean about it. Yeah. I apologize later for my approach, but I just was like, I'm done. Like, this is so stupid hard. Why? I don't understand. And about a month later, didn't take very long, I was at a wedding I didn't want to be at, knowing that this isn't going to work out, kind of a wedding, but I was there to support. And in the back room, the TV was on, and it's interesting, I never watch TV. I just don't. But there was a guy on that was talking about omega-3s and nuts and seeds and flax and fish, and he kind of offhandedly said, in Greenland, it's so dark there. And normally that would equate to being depressed because they're not getting any sunlight, but they're not. They're they have the least incidence of depression in the world, and I think it's because they eat so much fish. Now, I looked this up later, and according to AI, it's not actually accurate, but the point is I needed to hear it. Mm-hmm. And when I heard that, I thought, interesting. I'm sure it won't help me. I didn't believe it, but it sounds healthy. I'm going to try it. So I started eating fish 3 days a week, doing all kinds of nuts and seeds, just kind of overdosing on all of it. I did a ton of omega-3s. 3 months later, I quote unquote forgot to go get my medication, and I was at day 5 of not having it. Usually day 3, I was a mess.
But you forgot. You weren't even thinking about it.
I wasn't even thinking about it. I completely forgot to go get the meds. And suddenly I realized I forgot my meds. I should go to the pharmacy and go get that prescription filled. And I started to get ready to go, and then sat down for a minute. Thought, wait. Thought about the last 5 days. And I was like, oh my gosh, I think it's working. Holy cow. And I remember just giving thanks, like, thank you. That's something so simple. I didn't believe food could heal me. Yeah. I didn't. I thought that was phooey.
Right? It's so powerful.
That it was just a brain thing. My doctor told me it was a brain thing, that I was chronically genetically depressed, and that's just how it was. And I didn't know what kind of miracle God had in store, but I had no doubt he was going to provide one, but I didn't realize it would be that simple.
That's simple. And sometimes it is. It's just rooted in what we put in our body. That's simple, what God has gifted us, this beautiful food,
Yeah.
And I love that you mentioned that. And I love that you also mentioned you kind of forgot, which helped because you didn't go in that fear going, ooh, it's day one of me not having it. How am I going to feel tomorrow?
I would have filled it. Yeah. Absolutely. I would have filled it and just kept going on with my life.
Yes.
But I think that something made sure I forgot at the right time, because years later I read an article that actually said that doing the fish and all of the omega-3s, it takes 3 months for it to get into your system long enough to make a difference in the way you felt. And it was 3 months, almost on the dot, that I started doing this. And it was just a miracle. I can't say it in any other way.
That's something I've taken for a really long time, and actually started giving my kids as well, because I brought my son to do Dr. Amon's clinic for a brain scan.
Cool.
And it showed that there was some inflammation in the amygdala and a fight and flight section of his brain. And so I kept on, I'm the, like, kind of like you mentioned your son asking why? Well, I'm a lot like, well, why?
Yeah.
I keep out digging and realizing his gut health and heavy metals and mold exposure had all created this inflammation in the brain. And so since we started taking omegas and a couple of other different supplements and changing, I've always been really good with my diet, but even better now, even noticing even my organic hummus I was buying was more with seed oils. And it's like, okay, I have to really be vigilant in picking out things that don't have seed oils or dyes for my kids. I would see that a lot.
Yeah. So
nutrition is huge. I find it, even kids that ADHD and autism, the minute you remove like gluten and dairy and things like that, their symptoms I have so many parents that have children with ADHD and autism, and they say once they change their diet, their symptoms are much less.
Yeah. And the fish thing, it's pretty dang easy. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot to eat fish 3 days a week. I found that was the replacement for Prozac for a long time. Wow. I'm not necessarily dependent on that anymore because I did more work. But after I figured that out, my mind was blown. I was just like, wow, if this works, what else can I do? And I had a long way to go. I certainly wasn't healed in all of his modalities, but I never took Prozac again. Wow. And it was just so liberating to be like, I don't have to be dependent on this anymore. Yes. And I feel like in the days ahead, we're so dependent on these things that may or may not be available to us. You have to ask yourself, if the world got to a state where I couldn't get a hold of the drug that I need right now, what's plan B? Am I going to fall apart?
That's really good.
Am I going to die? Am I going to be a mess? Or am I going to be the one who's with it, helping other people get through it?
Wow. That's beautiful.
And that was one of my biggest motivators, was I don't want to be the person a mess. Because, times can be hard. We're reliant on China for a lot of the things that we get. What if they cut it off our supply? You just never know. And storms that come through, maybe you didn't fulfill your prescription and there's no way to get it for a while. So I don't want to be dependent on it. I don't think anybody does. But when you turn it over to God and you say, I'm done. Yeah. You have the solution. Show me what it is. And it might not be as simple for you. Maybe fish doesn't fix it all. But there are solutions and there are miracles that are available for you. And I talk about all of them in my podcast.
What's the next thing that you incorporated? What was the next thing after that? Once it
was
up?
mind work. I did Lifeline. Lifeline was a huge lifeline for me. Callie Efros, her website is indigomountainhealthandwellness.com. She's one of my heroes. And she was willing to, I was very poor at the time, and she was willing to work with me for what I could afford. And it's just very subtle hypnotism, very, very subtle. Like you're totally there. But it gets kind of to the root of the problem. When did it start? And helps you to release it in a very gentle way where you don't even have to remember what happened. You just have to recall that, I'm feeling this emotion. This is what I want to get rid of. This is what I want to have instead. And identifying that. And then she can help identify the age and the process. The process
almost. Yeah, I had done parts work, which is maybe a little bit similar, as far as I've never done hypnosis, but I've done parts work and visualization and all that and, breath work. And I feel it does help kind of rewire that event.
Yeah, you have to, or you'll just keep doing the pathway that you've been doing for me was the last 25 years.
Yeah.
It's the easy way. It's the way that you're used to. You have to start to block that pathway off and create a new one. And the only way to do that is through intentionally. Often when you're that sick, you need someone to call your BS. Because you just can't. It's too hard to think positively. It just doesn't last. So you really need someone. Therapy's good. I think that some of these other things that are designed to reprogram your brain, either cognitive behavioral therapy is pretty good. I love Lifeline. EFT was the tapping. That really helped me a lot. You can learn that yourself. It's free.
Yes, I do that with my kids.
If you do that every day, that can make some progress. Some other things. There's SRT. There's so many of them now. And so many people that you just intuitively.
Have you tried an EMDR?
I don't think I've done. Well, Lifeline incorporates some of that.
Some of that, okay.
Actually, not specifically EMDR, but I've heard great things about that too.
Yes.
The only thing I wouldn't recommend are the hallucinogens.
Yes. I'm so glad you bring that up, because as I went into my journey of just being so curious, I was like,
it's tempting.
Yeah, and I did. I tried it, and it was the worst thing that I did.
Really?
It actually brought darkness. It brought in
Most
fear.
people don't recognize that.
Yeah, it dawned on me. It took me a little bit. At first, I was really a believer on that because I've had.
Oh, it feels so good.
And I've had therapists say, "Wow, this is the only thing that's helped my, my guess I've gone through the worst abuse or traumas," and I've had addicts saying that's what helped them out of that, or moms out of postpartum. So I was just really curious. But for me personally, it actually brought on self-sabotaging events leading afterwards. And I recognized I think it brought on a dark entity.
Yeah, exactly.
And it opened up that gate for a dark entity.
That's what I believe.
Yeah. And then I called a friend after it dawned on me what it did. I was like, did that happen to you too? And she said, yes. She had 8 months of bad decisions, self-sabotaging afterwards. And now I kind of feel guilty because on a few podcasts, I'm like, oh yeah, I think this is great. It saved people. And now I'm like,
that's where you were at.
Yeah.
No,
at the same time, everyone to each their own journeys. But for me, it actually, I spiraled in fear, shame, self-sabotaging leading up to it. And I think it introduced a dark entity, and I had to really work hard to remove that.
Well, most people don't recognize that. They'll feel really, really, really good afterwards, and it'll last a few months. And then they'll start spiraling again, and then they'll go back and do it again. And they don't connect what's happening or the connection of other events in their life. Kind of like, there's so many other things that take a while to show results that people don't make the connection.
Yes.
So I very much believe that. I know a lot of people are gung-ho all over it. This is the best thing ever. And that's what you described is exactly what I'm saying.
For me, I was like, I should have known. I big believer in prayer and God and my faith. I'm really strong in it. And I looked outside of myself, outside of that, to reach for more healing, where ultimately I just got to.
People get desperate.
Yes,
again, they get desperate and they just want to be healed. They want some relief. And I was blessed with the inspiration to plead to God in that case, and in desperation. I'd never been that desperate before. I think a lot of people lose their faith because nothing's working. And all of the things that they've done in church have not been effective. And the blessings
they've received. To that? Because there's some people like, I do all these things. I pray. I believe in God. But they're still lingering. Yeah, that darkness.
Yeah, there's something that we're all holding on to. If you still have it, then there's usually it's a sin, an unrepented sin, but it's not even necessarily yours.
It could be ancestral.
It could be ancestral.
I believe
so
that.
It's not just like, oh, I'm a bad person or I made a mistake, but it's these repeated patterns that you're now perpetuating, that you don't know why you're perpetuating it. And there's a part of you that's addicted to it in some way that you're not ready to let it go. And of course, like going to church, saying prayers, they all help. They keep your head above water. But eventually, you want to get out of the water onto dry land and start living.
Yes.
We don't want to be treading water forever. And I think that's why, yes, prayer, scripture reading, all those things, meditation are so important, because they do keep us from drowning, but they're not enough.
Okay, well, what's that next step?
You
Like,
have to have that personal connection with God, and a lot of us who are in mental disorder are blocked from that. So how do you reach it? Again, it's that I give it all, I'm done. Help me, show me the way. I will do anything you want. And being willing to do whatever comes. And to help me recognize the counterfeits, because they will show up too. They'll try to deceive you, they'll take you in this way.
Yes.
But try to be sensitive to that peace. Where do I feel the peace? Where is this leading me?
So do you do like a sort of like energy clearings? Like, what do you do to keep them at bay, to keep...
I ask, like, a lot of people say, I want to shield, shielding, so they're protected while they're going throughout their day or trying to improve. I don't think that's enough either. I think you need the whole shebang. You need the whole armor on, from the tips of your toes to the tops of your head. So asking for that and visualizing it around you as well, and like that shield of protection being the most important part, because that's the faith that keeps it all together.
And I know you've shared a story where I'd love for you to share it again. It's where you mention sometimes you might need a group to surround you in prayer.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. There were times that I was, there was one particular time that I made a big mistake. I went against what I knew to be right, knew to be true, because I wanted to do it. And it was flat out wrong. And I knew it. And I'd never done something out of preconceived, thought it out, done it, even though I knew it was wrong. I don't think I'd ever done that. It was always an oops, or I made a mistake. This was different. And I woke up the next morning and I knew I was in trouble. I felt what the scriptures define as fiery darts. That I was like, oh, these are real. They're not just theoretical. And it was incessant. It wouldn't stop. I was hot, and the heat wasn't like the heat of the sun. It was an uncomfortable, something's very, very wrong. My protection was gone. And the protection I'd had my whole life. And I know that God was trying to teach me something. Like, you really, I love you. You don't want to do these things. I promise you. It's not because I'm trying to punish you, but you made this choice and you sent everything that was protecting you away. And about the third day of fighting this, I was like, I'm going to lose. Like, I've literally felt like I'd opened a door and things were getting in.
So was it like your environment? You made a bad decision, which allowed to open a door.
Yeah, and it wasn't just it was like a door to the spiritual realm, to my mind. It was going to change me. It was going to affect me in very bad ways and numb my spirit and my conscience.
Yeah, they kind of take over. I saw that with my husband. They kind of just take over.
Yeah.
And change him completely.
I was scared. And a friend of mine who was aware of what I had done had tried to stop me, and she couldn't stop me. And she'd been praying for 3 days for me because she knew what was happening. And she called two friends of hers who I was acquainted with as well. And she said, we have to get rid of this. We have to close this door you opened. It was never supposed to get opened. But if we don't close it, it's not going to look good for you. And so we set a time, and we talked about it. We each had a job to do. All my job was to shine. And my other friend of mine is a male friend, and he kind of pep talked me. It was really harsh with me. He said, you've got to stop feeling guilty. Like, this is it. You got to stop fighting now. It's over. You did it. You're going to move on, and you're going to do better. Okay? So cut it out, or you're going to lose.
Yeah, that guilt. They sit in that guilt because that's what they want you to do.
Yeah.
Sit in that guilt.
Like, just get over it. And I was like, okay, I will. So I basically put on this mantle of, I can do this, and all my job was to shine. Meditatively, like to just light, lots and lots of light.
I say that in breath work. I'm like, okay, each breath in, allow that light in.
So I went and sat by a tree, and it was very quiet, and it was actually nighttime when we were all able to get together in different countries. And so I went out and I took a candle out with me. And as I was meditating, and it was for about an hour, and I wasn't on the phone with anybody. We were just all doing something, and one of their job was to. This sounds so weird. It felt weird to me at the time, but one of the person's job was to hold a rope, like a lifeline, in case my other friend got stuck. And his job was to close the door, to get in and close the door and try to fight off what was ever getting in the way. And again, to me, I was like, that's a lot to grasp, but okay. I don't understand it, but I do understand that something crazy weird is going on, and I'm willing to trust you. And so as I was praying, this candle of mine just toppled over. There was no wind. And I was like, and I yelled into the darkness, I am not afraid of you. And I lit it back up and I put it on, and it was fine for the rest of the evening. And I went to bed after about an hour. I felt, and I was visualizing and just visualizing whatever came to my mind that was of light, power and support and my God. And he was showing me some things that I'd never seen before. They were just beautiful. And it just kind of changed my frame of, I really don't want that. I really don't. When I thought it was all I wanted before, right? And I went to bed that night. I woke up the next morning, and the chaos and all that feeling of darkness, it was gone. Wow. And I felt that protection back. So it did take a group effort in that instance. And I feel like God had prepared me with those people prior, because he basically knows. He knows the things we're probably going to do, yes, and how to protect us when we get there if we want to get out.
To allow more light in.
Yeah,
right?
Because without the atonement, we would all be lost. Yeah. We need the light, we need the hope.
The hope, yeah, and to know the difference, and to know your environment, how it can truly affect. That's why I always say your container, your body, to keep it so strong, like healthy wise, like bring it light with good nutrition, take care of yourself, your mental health, more stillness, less busyness, where it's
all those distractions that keep us from connecting with each other and with our higher power.
Yeah, I've, I say I'm always my own like science project, because as we were going through like these gut health and mold and in our house, I realized when I was fasting and cleansing, then I could hear God so much clearer. So I knew something in me was clouding that clarity, because I definitely guided intuitively and I listen, but sometimes that's clouded and I can't hear.
There's so many things. There's so many things clouding it very intentionally too. I mean, down to pollution, like we were talking about, the food, the water, the air, the EMFs.
Yes.
Going out into nature is
the best. That's why we love it.
I love nature for that reason.
For cleansing in the water. That's what my family, we love going cold plunging, in creeks and whatnot. But that's always calling us to go in nature. I think that's the best. And for me, breath work has been going within, and clearing out anything. Finding that stillness. Yeah, that stillness. And so what is kind of because obviously this is something we're bombarded every day. Mm-hmm. So what do you do on a regular basis to keep those at bay?
For me, I do a lot of quite routine prayers, but I'm always asking, what do I need? And there's specific things I ask for pretty much every day. As I'm milking my goats, that's what I'm usually going through the list in my head of remove these things and surround me with these things. And for my family, my friends, my home, my property. Yeah,
just ask like clear questions. What do I need? What does my body need? Because sometimes, we are depleted in something, in a nutrient, like you had mentioned, omega.
And that's kind of my maintenance. But when it gets to be too much, I have my people, maybe 3 or 4 different people that I know I can reach out to, who I'm like, I'm stuck. Can you see it? I can't see it. And to help me to work through it. And it could be for my child or my husband too. Like, something's going on. I can't see the root of it. Will you get me started so I can? Yeah,
it's so funny. I just did that. I actually have a friend. She's this energy healer and a muscle tester and whatnot. And she helps clear your house. And I was like, I know there's something here. After I had done the plan, I was like, it dawned on me. And my kids, my son in particular, had been spiraling in his thoughts, and he's normally not like that. And so the change of behaviors, I was like, you need to come to my house and do this whole clearing. And then I actually did myself, and then I got my kids, and my poor kids, they're like, oh gosh, what is mom making us do? But they're getting used to me
and
talking about
being
that.
specific.
Yes.
Like you can identify the emotions in a lot of cases. In my case, I couldn't figure it out. Like, what's going on with my 3-year-old? He was not himself for about 2 months. I could not figure it out. And I finally got it kind of like, okay, here's where to start. Here's where is it? Like, basically, my friend said, there's something in you that it's a guy, and he's affecting your husband and your son. So it made me start to think, who have I been around, and what have I been doing, and what's the pattern here? And I started thinking about, I'd just been to a reunion, all the people I'd been around, and I made the connection that all these people I'd been around had daddy abandonment issues.
Oh, okay.
And that seemed to be what my son was experiencing. He was acting very strange with regards to his dad, and we couldn't figure it out. Like, I'm right here, but he's acting like paranoid. And so I started asking for the Lord to remove all the anxiety and the abandonment and the feelings of not worth anything and nobody cares about me, and just to please take all of that. And there was also a connection from person to person to person to person. Sometimes you can see it where it's not coming directly from you. It's like 3 or 4 different people that it started with this person, it starts to come down. And if you can identify that, great. Sometimes I think the Lord's like, good enough. I know you're trying, good job. But sometimes it's taken me months to figure something out, but it's been worth it. And once you clear all those things, ask them to leave, you'll start to feel that release.
Yeah, kind of cutting, I call it these attachments.
You can cut cords and attachments,
right? Yes,
yeah. But identifying the emotions or the whatever it is, it's an emotion or a person, or saying, I want to be myself right now. Can you remove anybody that's not me so I can feel me? And it's not like people think, well, why would God allow this? It's for learning. We're here to understand, empathize, and also learn from other people, not just ourselves. And we attract like. So like energy attracts energy. So if you are experiencing or still have something in you that resonates with that frequency, you're going to attract more of that until you figure it out. And once you do, you won't attract it anymore.
That's why it's so important to learn about yourself and your old patterns and where it's coming from.
And your ancestors.
Yeah, ancestors, yeah.
Yeah, learn about their stories. What were they going through? Is it still with you? Did that pass down to you, those emotions that they may have felt?
My husband, he had 2 grandparents who died by suicide as well. Can you imagine what got passed down over time, and even in my family, there's been a lot that's been passed down, and I'm realizing now, seeing it in my mom and still lingering, but she's very spiritual.
It's hard to do too, where the person we lie to the most is ourselves. We're very easy to convince if we're lying to ourselves. And so just being painfully honest, but again, non-judgmental. See it and just look at it and go, interesting. I mean, I had a moment where, again, I feel like the Lord was trying to teach me something, but it was very humbling. Please don't judge me, audience, but I felt this intense attraction to a little boy for about, and I was like, whoa. And because of what I knew, I was like, this is not me. Yes. This is not me. What is this? Wow. And I worked on it for about 3 hours. And after 3 hours, it left. But even something like that, you got to go, okay, there's this pedophile energy around me right now. Yeah. Wow. And it's got to go. Yeah. Instead of saying, oh my gosh, I must be attracted to children and I'm a horrible person. No, just observe it.
Oh, and so this is going to be so good for the audience, because I think having that thought probably will produce even more guilt, and maybe then that thought keeps coming, keeps coming.
And more and more and more.
And more and more. And I love you mentioned that, because I had a guest on, and he shared his, suicidal thoughts, and him saying he was in the car and had his gun beside him. And he says, I know it wasn't me telling me to pick up that gun that day, leaving his 3 kids and his wife. He's like, something was telling me to pick up that gun. And that episode, I was like, gosh, it just reaffirmed what I felt in our home, that there was something there that was really scary and aggressive. Telling my
wanted
husband
to take him
do
out,
these things.
wanted to destroy you and your kids. And I look at you and you're like, nope, not happening.
Yes. Well, luckily for me, as I felt that, I started going, okay, if he's not willing to incorporate some of these work, I've got to start working on myself, because I can't have two parents fall, so allowing more light, we're going to church and we're, praying, exercising, going outside, having community, but I still see it battling my family. As much as I've learned these tools, like I said, they can still, I've seen it with my kids, actually, who they attract and hang out with lately have been a huge lesson. It's almost like that child, that friend has an entity or probably a darkness, and they kind of seeing my kids' light, and then they latch on to them, and I see a behavioral change. I've seen that happen a lot. And so I've been trying to teach my kids to be very careful who you choose as a friend, and to pray for them too. If you feel that they are not at a good place and there's a lot of jealousy and a lot of anger, let's pray for them. And actually lately I've been practicing, if there is, conflict and whatnot, just at nighttime in my meditation, picturing talking to them and explaining how I'm feeling. And I say, I don't judge you. Yes, I love you, but this is not aligning. This is what I feel, and
that actually, but if you don't mind me sharing a tool that I've learned in recent years that's been incredibly helpful for me, and that is that what you just talked about, like the practicing in your mind of what I'm going to say and do. And you can also do this with things that have already happened. So things that didn't go very well, or even things from 20 years ago that you're still thinking about every once in a while or all the time that bother you. I wish I could have a do-over. Well, you can.
Oh, I love that.
You can. Yes. I love the scripture that when you repent and you're forgiven, I remember your sins no more. Like they're gone. I don't even think about them. And we can be the same. So you can go back to an event, something that went really poorly for you. Maybe you made a poor choice, or someone did something to you that really hurt, and you do a redo. And you can also invite, in a spiritual sense, that person who did you wrong. Let's try this again. Do you want a do-over? Do you want to try this again? And you go through it a few times. Usually I'll go through it for the first time for real, like, okay, this is what really happened, identify the emotions, ask the Lord to take them. And then I'll go through it again and do it the way I wish it had gone. The things I'd wished I did say. The things I wish I had done, or how I could have responded better. And same with them. Like the other person will respond just perfectly. Yeah. And
I think that's an incredible tool.
A powerful tool. It creates these new neural pathways where you don't. I feel like you don't even think about what happened. It's not like you necessarily forget, because you can recall and go, oh, yeah, I guess it did happen that way. But you've created this new memory. You could literally create the childhood you always wish you had. If you've had a horrible childhood, you can go back every night and think about the childhood you'd wanted, how your mother and father could have treated you, all the things you could have done, and build the life you always wanted. And even if you did forget the original, does it really matter if you're living a thriving life built on the life you choose and the way that you wish you had been? And you can let all of those other things go and replace it with memories that can feel authentic to what you want now.
I like that. I think that would be a powerful tool, because I think visualization and inner child work as well is kind of similar. It's going back and maybe speaking to that child and what does it need, and to repattern your brain in that memory, having a second chance, because I truly feel like that's what God wants us. It's just not to hold on to that past. Every day you have a second chance. He doesn't want you to bring all your big suitcase of things from when you were little. Let it go. And I think with suicide survivors, I think that is the hardest part, is that you're like, oh, the guilt. How come I didn't see this? How come I didn't do that? But that was ultimately their choice. Yes, would I wish that I would have known all the things I've learned now that I could have incorporated? Yes, absolutely. But just repainting that. I'm gonna try that,
Yeah,
and if you
it's
call it
worked
the
really,
redo
yeah,
process.
like the redo
I
method,
like that.
and I like to
use
take
that with my kids.
I like to
Actually.
take
I
Jesus
like that.
with me, and like
Yes.
help me do this your way, help me see this through your eyes,
I
because
can
it's
see
all
that
about
so good with kids.
perspective. It's not the memory of what happened itself, it's how you put value into it or the meaning behind the memory. So if you can change the meaning,
Yes.
then you can heal it.
I'm going to use that, especially because I find my kids are so hard on themselves. They've done something bad.
Yeah.
And it's not them. And actually, the more that I look at it, they have such a good heart, but sometimes they do things you're like, whoa, that was really out of character. Like,
Right.
what is going on? There's something
What
more
got
rooted.
into you?
Yeah, what got into you? Exactly. And I am going to use that. They can go back and have the redo, and it gives them hope. And
Well, and for anger especially, I feel like when I was angry, I would always say, oh, I'm never going to do that again. That was horrible. I will never do that again. Because it was like I was out of control in a very literal sense when I would go into a rage. There was nothing I could do to stop it once it got to that point. And it was horrible. And yes, I got to be in charge of my own body, but there's a point where you got to stop it before it gets there, right? And I would always say, I'm never doing that again. And then, sure enough, I would do the same thing again because those neural pathways were still in place. I was still programmed to do that when I got to a certain point.
Do you find that was generational? Was anger passed down? Do you
Not,
know that you know of? Or?
Yeah and no. Mine was pretty bad. And I did identify the ancestor it came from. And it was a few generations back. So it wasn't necessarily everybody was angry. I was definitely angry. And this ancestor was definitely angry. But I can't speak for everybody else because I didn't live with them. But
I talk about anger actually in my book as well. I talk about, and it was actually my daughter as I'm writing, she's like, are you going to talk about your anger? Because there were points I was suppressing so much my emotions with what was going on at home that I would take it out and scream at my kids. And then I still remember looking in my little kids' eyes and I felt like consumed with the darkness. Yeah. And I almost was like, this is not me. And I'd cry myself to bed. How can I be doing that to these young, poor kids? And so that's why it's called The Truth Behind the Smile. I talked about it all, the shame, because I know a lot of parents sit in that shame of being angry, because we're holding on so much. We're so overwhelmed. We all have a tipping
We take it
point.
out on these innocent kids, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh gosh.
My oldest
wish I had a redo in so much of those years,
Sadly, I mean, I apologize to them, many times I'm so sorry you had to put up with me when I was a mess.
Yes.
Like God obviously knew you needed to come here and help me through this process, but you didn't deserve any of that.
And so true. I've talked to my kids to say, this is not what you deserve at all, and I'm really sorry.
You deserve better. And I feel like I'm most of the time, majority of the time, I'm the mom I always wanted to be. And I never could have imagined or thought that was possible. Just even like 7-10 years ago. And every year I feel like it gets just a little bit better because I learn new things. I'm still working and growing.
Now you've created some journals, right? You've created books as well that are kind of a journal.
Yeah, I have a workbook, the Overcome Depression workbook. I've just made the first one so far. I've been pretty busy with just podcasting, so I do want it to be a series eventually, but there's just the first one right now. It includes a coloring page from an intuitive friend of mine who she's so cool. She creates these drawings that help people process certain things.
I have a friend like that too.
Yeah, it's really neat.
Yeah,
and so it's a coloring page and then an SRT. There's a QR code in there to an SRT programming release that another friend of mine did for the book. And it also, of course, includes all of the podcast links, QR codes, and journal prompts, and different activities you can do. Everything from the podcast kind of compiled into a book.
And what's the name of your podcast again?
The Overcome Depression Podcast.
Okay, I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, I think I'm so excited to just share all this information because I want people to be aware that sometimes that's not them. There's something darker. And I know for a while, actually, I had a psychologist. I prayed and prayed when I moved here, who would be my counselor, what kind of therapy I would need. And I meet this psychologist randomly at a nail salon. And I knew she was sent for me. And I worked with her for a long time. And now we're friends. And I was just on her podcast. But she, as I was telling her my story, she was like, and she was a doctor, a psychologist, but she brought faith into it. She's a Christian. And she says, oh, Melissa, you know, that darkness you're talking about, it's probably in you now too, you know, because when you have a partner, whatever, you know, they have, and you sleep with them, and, you know, that darkness can enter you as well, and your family, your kids, you know.
Just got to identify it, bring it to light.
Bring it to light, yeah. But she's, you know, at first I was a little scared. I'm like, well, I don't call it a demon. That creates fear. And that's not what I think we want to create, is more fear about that, but just more awareness, you know, that it is a real thing. And how to keep it at bay is with more light.
And light is so much more astronomically powerful. It doesn't take a lot of light to dispel the darkness. You just have to let it in. Stop blocking it out.
Stop
by your guilt and shame.
Yes, yeah, fear. And as I dove into my second book, I realized that fear compromises your immune system. And I had this vision in April that these entities are entering through our gut lining, a compromised gut lining. And they are really, I mean, I don't know. God gave me this
even
kind of
just
vision.
On a foundational level, yeast and parasites are wiggly little things that are alive, and they're not pleasant.
Yes, exactly.
You want to minimize those.
Yeah, and they cause inflammation in the brain, and then clouds your, you know, your judgment and depression as well. So it just
that was a big part of my healing too. Later down the road was the detoxing. And,
did you? Okay.
Yeah, that was kind of the next big step.
What did you detox? Was there like mold toxicity? Because I've had.
I did the body ecology diet.
Okay.
It about ruined me. It was so hard, and I never realized how badly I was addicted to sugar until I quit it cold turkey, and in all of its forms. Because on that diet, you don't get milk, you don't get nuts or seeds, you don't even get beans or you know, cheeses or I don't know, any fruit, no fruit at all. So it's literally, you're starving your body of any sugar whatsoever.
Yeah. Because certain parasites, that's what they want.
The yeast and the parasites work together. Yeast, and I wanted to die. I mean, I didn't want to, I was never the kind who would actually go through with it, but I was just like, just end it now. This is too hard. But I knew if I didn't go through with it, I was going to be sick for the rest of my life. It was one of those things. I was having trouble, and that was the answer, and I knew it, so I did it. But it was brutal hard. But on the other end, my body looked so much better, healthier. My brain was working clearer. My face started clearing up. People who had been afraid, they're like, "Why are you doing this? You're losing so much weight. This is horrible," and they're trying to talk me out of it. When they saw me after the fact, were like, wow, you were right. Like this clearly was good.
Yeah, I've been through that road with my kids, which is sometimes a little harder with kids to go through those detoxes because you kind of have to slow and steady, you know, and
that's rough.
But yeah, it's so important that you cleanse and on a daily basis as far as what you put into your body, because they all play a big role of your mental health.
Yeah, your gut and your brain are they're both brains.
Yes,
they're connected.
Yes, exactly. So it's been an honor to have you on, and we'll put in the show notes how to follow you, listen to you, and your workbook. Keep them coming.
Thank you.
You know, thank you very much.